Welcome back to my channel where we discuss the MCC laws of cricket. Today we'll be discussing Law 18 scoring runs. It's a pretty long law. Perhaps we'll do it in one or two sessions. Let's see how things go. Now we know that the law tells us that the score of the sides we all know is reckoned by runs. The score is reckoned by runs, and a run is scored as often as there are three ways in which runs are scored. One is awarding of penalties. There are various penalties which are awarded. There are 22 ways in which penalties are awarded. All of them being 5-run penalties, except the no ball and the white ball being a 1-run penalty. 22 ways of penalties awarding. When a boundary is scored, the batsman has hit the ball, or somehow the ball has reached the boundary without making contact with the bat or person of the which are byes, leg byes, and all boundaries, where a boundary allowance is given for the ball reaching the boundary. And the third, more obvious way is where the batters crossed and made good their ground from end to end at any time while the ball is in play. So at any time when the ball is in play, they have crossed and made good their ground. Made good their ground, and therefore they scored a run. How a run is scored is during play you cross over to the other end, make good your ground at the other end, and keep running alternately in that way. We all know it. This is how it is done. This law goes on to state a principle of law. It says that whenever any runs are disallowed or runs are not scored, there are some provisions in the laws which say that runs shall be allowed in these certain circumstances. At the same time, there is another law which says that runs will be disallowed or runs will not be scored. The principle of law is the law that says no to runs provides for disallowance of runs or runs not being scored shall prevail over or override the law making provision for runs. I'll give you some instances of it. Let me just read the law here. Any provisions in the laws that provides for the disallowance of runs, or for a run to be disallowed or a run not to be scored. Now the definitions of these you will see in Appendix A11, where runs disallowed and runs not scored are there. Please look it up. Or for the non-award of penalties. There is a law which provides for penalties. There is another law which says penalties will not be given. I can give you examples of this, but it will be clearer as we go along. These shall override any provision in the laws made for scoring of runs or awarding of penalties. This principle has to be understood. The disallowance provision will override the provision for making applicable. We'll discuss this in detail, and we'll repeatedly be talking about this particular principle as we come across these instances in the laws. Whenever runs are disallowed under any provisions of the laws, the 1-run penalty or no ball and wide will always stand. There is no way you can wipe out a no ball or a wide ball penalty unless it is revoked under circumstances. The no ball call is revoked. Otherwise you cannot. And a 5-run penalty shall be allowed. So whenever runs are disallowed and under any provisions of the law, the 1-run penalty for no ball and wide shall stand, and 5-run penalties for offences done by either side will also be allowed. Just because physical runs are not being allowed does not mean that penalties will not apply. Penalties for offences will continue to apply, except the penalty runs under law 28.3, protective helmet belonging to the fielding side. Let me explain this. First, we need to understand what is so different about the penalty law under 28.3. In this case also, a 5-run penalty is awarded to the batting side if the ball goes and strikes the helmet lying behind the wicketkeeper. But the actions are different. The nature of the offence is also different. It is not at all an unfair action, not at all an unfair action like other cases are. it is not at all an unfair action. It is more in the way of runs being scored rather than an offense. And you will also see when we come to 2.28.3, this is the only instance of awarding a fire and penalty which is not followed by a report made to the authorities for further action. The matter ends there. It has happened. Fire and penalties are given more in the. It is more about scoring of runs rather than an offence. It is not an offence at all. It is recognized that this is not an offence. Therefore, there is no follow-up action. Similarly, whenever you will come across provisions in the laws that the law will say that in these circumstances all penalties should be given to either side. They have made an offence, so as the batting side, both sides will receive a fire and penalty, except for a penalty under 28.3, ball hitting the helmet, because it is considered more as giving runs. It is not an offence. In various places, the laws have told us all penalties, fire and penalties, should be given, even if the result has been achieved. But this is a little different, and you must understand the nature of this particular fire and penalty and how the law treats it in various places. Now the law says that when runs are physically run by the batters, it will happen very often nowadays. In the days of television, we see that the batter has failed to put his bat down. Making good his ground from end to end means that he has to touch the ground at the one end, then come back and touch the ground with his bat or person at the other end. That is making good his ground from end to end. Short runs are divided into two categories. One is the unintentional short run, and the other is the intentional short run, which is treated as an unfair act and is also penalized. Now, what to do in both these circumstances when the umpire comes across short runs being run short unintentionally? There is a separate procedure for him to follow. When it is done intentionally by the two batters, there is separate procedure for the umpires to follow. If either batter fails to make good his ground in turning for the further run, the preceding run is deemed to be a short. Now you have to take at least two runs in order, so that when the batter runs from, the striker runs from here and fails to, or the non-striker, run starts off from one end, and in turning for another run, he has failed to put his bat down in the opposite ground. The preceding run is the one which is deemed to be short, and not the second one. The preceding run is the one to be deemed to be, and the second run will count as long as he has been able to finish it. Suppose he gets run out at the other end, so this run can't count, and the other run, the first run won't count because he failed to make good his ground. It was a short run. We'll have the umpire, one umpire raising his finger for out, while the other says one shot. So this can very easily happen, and therefore no runs will be scored. Although a short run, it is understood that it is common sense that although a short run shortens the succeeding one, the latter, if completed, shall stand. See, the end of one run was short and the beginning of the other run was short, but we have to disregard that. The law says the second one, if completed, will count. He has not started, and this allows a striker. Very often we see strikers, especially the front end batters, will stand quite a bit away outside the popping crease when they are in their stance, their batting position or their guard position. It is maybe a few inches and a couple of feet sometimes outside, and this allows them to start their run from that position. It is not a short run. We will not be regarding that as a short run. So this is as regards the short run, some general principles laid down here. Let us see how an umpire is to deal with unintentional short runs. These rules will apply except in the circumstances of 18.5, which are deliberate short runs. This is 18.4. Unintentional short runs will not apply. These provisions will not apply for deliberate short runs 18.5, those circumstances where a separate set of rules are given. If either umpire sees a batter run a short run as his end, umpire concerned shall call and signal short run as soon as the ball and shall not that run shall not be scored. Now either umpire can one from this we gather that either umpire can call a short run because at both ends it is that the batter is putting his bat down. So the umpire, both umpires, the bowler's end umpire who's taken now a square position and the square leg umpire is always there. The strikers and umpire is always square of the wicket will have to watch the ball etc. And when the batter puts his bat down, he has to be looking at where he has put his bat down, and the alert umpire will catch the short run, and he is supposed to call short run not in the middle of the game, but after the ball is dead, and he'll go up. He'll say short run will be signal. He'll say short run. He'll make out that call, and that run will not be scored. Now it could very well be that both batters have run short in one and the same run. Both of them have started, both of them failed to put their bats down and came back. Now both umpires have called one shot at to the batter who's there, one shot. Now it is very obvious that the first run is short. Both of them were at fault, and one run will be short out of the two. The second will count because then we know. Now suppose they have run 3, and in running both umpires have called. They have run 3 and both umpires have called short. Now both the umpires will have to consult and decide which was the batter. Whether in the same run the short running took place, in which case one run will be deducted, or if it is in different runs that the short running took place, the not placing the bat took place in different runs, then 2 runs will be deducted. But here the law also now goes on and tells us if more than one run is short, naturally both those 2 runs will be deducted, will be not be scored, not deducted, will not be scored, and the umpires are supposed to. It is important for us to note in such a situation, our scorer is remotely situated. What we need to tell him is one shot, and the signal will go there, one shot, and we have to indicate to him the number of runs to be scored. What are we to indicate to him? The number of runs to be scored. Naturally, when 3 are run, we'll have to tell him that score 1, and the scorer also should be knowing this, that the umpire signal means not to score 1 and not to deduct 1. He will never say one shot. He'll say score 1, or he'll tell him score 2. The batsmen will remain where they are, the batters will remain where they are, so the scorer has nothing, no way of knowing what exactly has happened, how many runs are given. It is you who has to tell him. When 2 runs are run and a short run signal goes, so it is clear to him that only 1 run can be short. But if more than 2 are run, 3 or more runs have been run, you have to indicate to him. And importantly, your signal will be short run, and you will have to tell him score 2, or you have to tell him to score 1. And the receiver of the signal should also understand that clearly. Make a note of it, regardless of the fact that he might be a very competent scorer. You might be umpiring a first class game, but I suggest you make a note of this and keep a watch on the scoreboard. It moves by 1 run or it moves by 2 runs. Keep a note of this, and when you go in to check the result, ask him whether you scored 1 or whether you scored 2. I suggest you do that. And now here there is one rule which is there, that if either or both batters have run short and the ball reaches the boundary, naturally the short running is of no consequence. Quite naturally, the short running is of no consequence. So you will not, the umpires no umpire will call short. It is futile. But if the boundary is as a result of an overthrow, if the boundary is as a result of an overthrow, in that case, the short running will also have to be called and the boundary signal be given. The short running which took place before the throw took place, had they run 2 and they were short in 1 run, you will be allowing only 1 run plus the boundary allowance. That 1 run will be short. So naturally, you have to signal to the scorers that you are to score a total of 5 runs. There will be one shot. One short signal has to be made, though it will be also accompanied by a boundary signal. So this is very important for us to understand. If the ball reaches the boundary, under normal circumstances, short running is ignored. It is of no use. He's run short, no doubt, but the ball has reached the boundary. And second, but it will not apply. Short run and boundary can go together, provided there is an overthrow instance and the short running took place before the instance of the throw. I think it is clear. Then we go on to deliberate short runs. What is to be done when the two batters, either batter runs deliberately short? And again, it is either umpire who can consider if one or both the batters deliberately ran short. At that umpire's end, the umpire concerned shall, when the ball is dead, call and signal short run and inform the other umpire of what has occurred. It is an instance of deliberate short run. When ball becomes dead, they'll allow the runs to be finished. But they see when the action is over, one of the umpires called short run, and he should communicate to the umpire, this is not the normal short run. I think that is deliberately run short. Very often, quite often, we have seen that the batter, when a tail ender and upper order batsmen are playing, it is towards the end of the innings. We'll see very often that such a situation occurs where the stronger batsman wants to take strike, and therefore he or both of them will deliberately run short to ensure that he gets to play the next ball. Coming to law 18.10, crediting of runs scored, the law tells us that how the runs have to be scored. These are commonplace provisions actually, but let us go through them. If the ball is struck by the bat, now we have in Appendix A and in Law 5 we had what is the meaning of the term struck by the bat. They will not elaborate that it has struck the glove. It is to be presumed that it is struck by the bat held in the hand of the batter. Just to reiterate, all runs scored by the batting side shall be credited to the striker. Commonplace, we know it. And if the ball is struck by the bat, a run shall be scored as penalty runs by. However, a award of 5 penalty runs will be scored as penalty runs under penalty extras, and a penalty no ball shall be scored in the no ball column. Quite some time earlier, those 5 it would be a boundary stroke struck of a no ball used to be 5 to the batter, but no longer so. The 1-run penalty will always be scored as a 1 in the no ball column. All penalty runs will be scored in penalty extras. In the extras column, only the balls actually hit by the striker will go to him, will be credited to him. This is the law. And if the ball is not struck by the bat, then as the case may be, it will go either to penalty runs, byes, leg byes, no ball extras, and to wides. This is how the law says. And if byes and leg byes are from a no ball, only 1-run penalty of the no ball will go there, and the remainder will go to byes and leg byes, which we commonly do. The no ball column will have that 1-run penalty, and the others which have been run will go to byes and leg byes, as the case may be. And the bowler is debited by all runs scored by the striker, all runs of no ball extras, and all wides. This is how the runs are credited and debited and are cross tallied by the scorers when they sit down to tally at the end of each over. They will also do that. Now there are some provisions here, Law 18 and Law 1811 and 1812. Batter returning to the original end. Original end being, if you have a look at Appendix A again, if you had a look, original end has a particular meaning, is the end where he originally was when the ball came into play. That was his original end. When the ball came into play, if I was at the striker's end, that is my original end. So when the law says that I'll be returned to my original end, I have to go back to that position. And in all cases of disallowance of runs, I have to take my original position there on the field, which was at the time the ball came into play. The not out batter shall return to his or her original end when the striker is dismissed in any of the following ways. When is this particular rule to be applied? That of not out batter returning to the original end. If both batters are alive, then of course both will return to their original end, but this is significant here. The not out, when one of them is out in some manner or the other, the not out batter has to go back to the original in the following cases. Now it is a dismissal of in the under circumstances of 25-6-4 and 25-6-5, run out of the batter himself, the injured batsman himself, or dismissal of runner or striker under that particular law. Runs will be disallowed and no runs are going to be allowed. We will discuss details of that. Again, I told you this is a listing. The original laws will make things a lot clearer. When after we have read those original laws and you come back to law 1811 and 1812, you will understand this a lot better. Now I am just going through these and making some points for you to know and understand. Please bear with me here. Even if you don't understand, some things are not clear. Now here, batter returning to the original end, which is bowled and stumped, hit the ball twice, LBW, hit wicket, and the recently added caught, obstructing the field where the obstruction prevents the striker from being being out caught. The batter, not out batter, shall return. One batter is out caught, the other batter will return to it. Though the position we had till recently, that of a catch, if the ends are changed, those ends will be retained. But not so anymore, not after 3rd edition 2022, which is coming into effect from 1st October. The not out batter who is now at the striker's end has to go back to his original end. So also with obstructing of a catch. So these are the provisions. Now one thing interesting that I might tell you is that a situation can arise that runs are disallowed. I'll come to that in a while. Now having understood this, we will go ahead with this in just a moment. So here we have an answer to a question that in case the ball is hit high up and the batters have crossed over and the ball drops and hits the stumps, the wicket, naturally the batter is out bowled. So we have an answer here that he's given out bowled, but the not out batter will have to return to his original end. Like I told you, in the case this can happen in the case of other instances also. Now going forward, the batter shall return to their original ends when a boundary is scored. We have seen that happen always. Runs are disallowed for any reason. And if the batter at the wicket decides to do so, provided for under law 41.0, which we deliberate distraction and obstruction of the batter, we decided can happen. Now here I want you to appreciate one particular instance. It is a case of hit the ball twice or deliberate padding the ball with his person, deliberately done. We know that no runs are allowed in this case, but the two batters cross over and the striker is out at the bowler's end. No runs. Had he completed, we would have disallowed and called him back. Here the striker, this is a case of disallowance of runs. the striker is out there, but the not out batter will be called back to his original end, and the new batter will come at the striker's end where the wicket did not fall. So this is a bit of an oddity which is there in the laws, that this is a case of disallowance of runs, where you will call him back and tell him, please come and take your original position. The new man will come at a position at a place where the striker, the batsman wasn't out. This is what will happen. Now, batters returning to the wicket he has left. When a batter is dismissed in any one of the following ways, shall not return to the wicket he has left, if the batters had already crossed at the instant of causing the dismissal. Now, these are the ways under which the batters will retain their positions even if they are out. If a batter is out, the positions will be retained in the following dismissals. One is where, in the other cases, the position will not be retained. The not out batter has to come back to his original position. Here, as we have said, obstructing the field where the obstruction does not prevent a catch from being out. The normal obstructing the field. And run out where all run outs, the position will not change, that position will remain the same, except of course we have a striker himself run out. Again, that is amount to disallowance, and dismissal conduct of a batter when he will return. So normally the position of the batters is not disturbed. They are not asked to return to their original ends, provided there are some exceptions where they will still have to be called back. Again, I must tell you that when we read the original laws and come back and read this, everything will fall in place in our minds and you will understand this better. But note particularly, if runs are to be disallowed, however, the not out batter shall return to his original end, which was the example I gave you. The disallowance of runs, I have done this, you will have to come back please, despite the fact that the striker is out there. You will have to come back to your original end or the end that you have left. 18.12.2 reiterates what we have already discussed. If while the ball is run is in progress, the ball becomes dead for any other reason than dismissal, batter shall not return to the wickets he had left if they had already crossed when the ball becomes dead. If, however, boundary, so it is a reiteration of what has been discussed earlier. So this finishes law 18 now, but a lot of it is a listing, and again I will tell you that certain provisions, that what is a run, how runs are given, short runs, unintentional short runs, deliberate short runs, all of these are laws that you must understand and look through. There are some others where will not be clear at this moment, but will be a lot clearer when we have, it is just a bringing together of the provisions in different places and clubbing them together in a comprehensive list. Sometimes that reading of that can be a little confusing, but you will see that as we finish our study of the other laws, these things will fall in place in your mind, and you will be able to see these things, the 1811 and 1812, all of them with greater clarity. That much I can assure you. I'm sure that will happen, and just bear with it in the meantime. Go ahead and read it again without too much breaking of your heads. Right? See you then. This finishes law 18, and we will go ahead with law 19, boundaries, in our next session. Bye for now.